Good morning, Guam, and thank you so much for starting your day the KUAM way. Starting lineup Tuesday. That's group chat with yours truly, Chris Barnett, and we're heading out. Obviously, this is the morning office with the Department of Agriculture's Forestry division. We have Christine Farron. I don't want to mess up your title, so go ahead. It's about 50 words long.
I'm a forester, cooperative fire protection program manager. I got it.
Right, and that's with Department of Agriculture.
Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Soil Resources Division.
There you go. We have the director of the Department of Agriculture, Chelsea. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Half a day.
And so we're out here on Cross Island Road. Coincidentally, there was a big fire here just the other day. There was also another big one last week, and we were talking before the show, and it looks like these were fires that were deliberately set.
They were intentionally set fires. The fire behind, or the scene behind us, was about an 80-acre fire, and it burned right up to the perimeter of Coastal Conservation Area. So if you're out here and you see the tree line, that's the conservation area. It makes about 500 acres.
And so, what I thought was interesting is heading into this show, I think like a lot of people out there just assume that fires, grass fires fall under the Guam Fire Department, but it's actually forestry, and you guys are out here on the front lines.
Well, the Guam Fire Department responds to all fires, but they're also emergency services, all emergency services. So Guam Forestry is, our primary mission is to protect and enhance the natural resources while also protecting the community. So we work together to be able to put a stop to these fires, or at least reduce the size of them when they do occur.
So Chelsea, we were talking before the show, and typical scene. You show up, you got Guam Fire Unit, you got the forestry folks, and they're actually hiking into the jungle, into these fires, and that's pretty crazy.
It is. Our forestry services, forestry aides, patrol for the fires, and then the first responders, they identify the fires, they respond by calling the fire department, but they're the first ones in there walking in and trying to subdue the fires. And then they're usually the last ones to leave when the fire's out.
First one's in, last one's out.
It happens.
Is that a fire thing? Is that a forestry saying?
No.
Am I in? Or?
No. It's a great unified effort. So when the fire department's out here, and even the occasion when we have to call for DoD resources, it's a wonderful network where we have these partners that come out, and we give it our all to try and protect this community and the watersheds that surround us, because it's ridge to reef here on the island. A fire today is sediment in the bays tomorrow.
Let's talk about the number of fires that you guys feel are started intentionally. Are we talking about maybe 80% of grass fires are started intentionally, or what's the figure?
It's a pretty big percentage. I mean, I think it's fair to say that 85%. And then the smaller, the other instances when it's a backyard fire that someone's cleaning their yard, have no ill will or intent to start a wildfire. But the one thing we can't control is the wind. You really can't control that. And so one miss, and we can end up with some pretty devastating fires. In fact, one that took place in 2016 that's memorable was out by Buena Vista. And that fire, we suspect that one came from a backyard. So
people just burn. I mean, we all grew up burning the trash. It's a bad thing. Don't do it.
It's illegal.
But I mean, you're right. People burn. Maybe they're burning. You're chopping stuff, and that wind catches it, and just got to get to the Sakate, and it's game over.
Right. So you look across the street and you see this fire that took place, and this one appears, we haven't mapped this one yet, but it looks about 50-60 acres. And you see the regrowth behind me. This is about a month old. So the regeneration, it's pretty fast right now, but when you look where it's green and then you see the red and the brown patches, that's never going to regenerate. That's done. So we run the risk of wildfires denuding the vegetation, removing soil every time it rains, and you lose area. People are literally losing land because of erosion. So if you're along a river especially, and we have floodwaters that come through because we had a wildfire on the ridge, and that river starts flushing, people along the rivers have shared many stories about watching their land just slough away into the river because the velocity of water is so great. So there's this huge impact, and people that see the flames in the ridge, we're trying to connect that flame and that fire in that ridge. It does affect you. It does. Whether it's smoke in the village and you're calling 911 because you can't, so you have a family member who can't breathe, that's directly affecting you.
Right.
If your water's being shut off because you live down south and UGM had to shut the pumps down, that's directly affecting you.
Right.
Schools, traffic, parents taking off work. So there's always a way, though, where there's a way. Okay, I'm not going to lay it heavy on the gloom and doom, but there are...
Too late.
I realize I get impassioned about this, but we have May 4th is coming up, and this is Community Wildfire Preparedness Day. So follow us at Guam Forestry, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I don't really know how to work Twitter, but you can follow it. And this is a day of action. So it's a day we encourage community members to come out and you do something. It's not agency driven. This is May 4th. You know what, today I'm gonna bush cut my yard. I'm gonna open up some space. So if wildfires threaten my village, my street, or my home, I have defensible space, an area that a firefighter can come through and be able to defend it. And or I don't need a firefighter to come through, but I have it opened up so that my neighbors who have jungle all the way up to the back door, I have a standing chance. But if we have one house, one street, one village doing something, a little bit of something throughout the day, then we can really scope back and see this bigger effect across the island.
We got to let Chelsea talk here.
I'm sorry,
you know,
Chelsea.
Chelsea's over here like, okay,
I love this topic.
save some for me. No, Chelsea, I mean,
There's more than enough to go around.
with the weather, right? So I think, and I'm coming from a generation where when I was a teenager, there was a lot of grass fires. I think we even had a near drought. I don't know how old you are, but I remember
Same
that.
age.
Right. So
Yeah.
there was a ton of grass fires, but now we get a lot of this rain hot, rain hot, rain hot, and I don't think people realize that when it gets hot, it dries things up, and it can contribute to the conditions that
Absolutely, and it dries things up more than you realize, because we look at the landscape and we see this green, so we think everything's fine, the soil, everything, there's no erosion, but this is all grass. And number one, the grass doesn't hold the soil, so there's still erosion, and the grass dries really quickly after a rain, and you'll see it with the ground, and you see cracks in the soil. That's because it's extremely dry. So what we need are trees, and we need people to understand that even if you see this grass, that doesn't mean that we've saved any specific area. It just means that it's waiting for the next fire to be set. And we can see the scarring that Christine mentioned. When I flew in on Saturday from a meeting, we saw all this tremendous amount of scarring that I don't think the community realizes is there. I saw the Southern Ridge on fire, and that has to be an intentional fire. I mean, I don't see anyone's house having embers fly all the way up to the top of the mountain. And then you see all the scarring and the grass that's going to just be burnt, and soil that erodes and washes away into our ocean. And it's not just about losing land, but it's about losing our fish and our coral. All the soil that washes into the ocean, when it meets at the mouth of a river or where the river enters the ocean, there are little fish that are trying to grow, and that's what's going to
little manahawks.
Little manahawk, the TL, everything. The lugwat, baby lugwats, all of them can't breathe and survive through that mud that's flowing into the water, and then it's damaging our coral as well. Guam has already lost a third of our coral population, and that has many contributing factors, but fires intentionally set are one of them.
And let's just call it like it is. I mean, when you talk about intentionally set fires, I mean, most of the time it's people who are hunting, right?
That's the presumption, is that a lot of times it's poachers. And I don't want to say hunters, because hunters have respect for our land and
Right.
have respect for property and life. It's poachers who are in there setting fires so that they can have new grass growth that'll draw out the deer, and then they kill the deer.
Right. And so, I mean, you guys do. Yeah, can we take a walk across here? I want to show the damage from this fire. Here in, yeah. Friendly reminder, guys, look both ways before you cross the street. Yep. Now the char here, I mean, it's just nothing but burn. And how big was this fire?
This was the fire that I think Christine said was around 50 to 60 acres.
Wow. And so, Christina, take us back to the scene of this fire.
Well, I pulled up a little later. The forestry crew was already here, and they were working with the Guam Fire Department. They had all actually hiked in, and so where it kind of goes into this little ravine, and then you see grass. The fire had basically settled right in that ravine, and so we were monitoring that and had to respond to a fire on 4 Alpha. So
4 Alpha is a tough spot, I tell you.
it.
I have no idea where that is. Where's 4 Alpha?
Sorry. It's right here where the other golf course is.
Right on.
So okay.
It looks
If
like
you're
a 4
going
Alpha.
into Talofofo, if
Right.
you're going into the village.
She just,
So-
I look like a fireman. She's probably just using the fireman lingo,
No,
you know.
no, it's the road. It's the
Right.
route. So, but we actually had to leave this one because we were hoping that it would die down because it's moving into green vegetation. It's more moist,
Right.
and we had to respond to the other one that was threatening homes. When we cleared up from there, everybody came back to this site. And this fire, it was already pushing about, I think, 8:30 or so in the evening. And Guam Forestry, the crew had to pull back because they had already been doing fire and fuel load reduction work earlier in the day. So I had to consider the number of my personnel and firefighter fatigue. And the Guam Fire Department, they're like, you know what, we've got this. We discussed a plan of action for how we anticipated this fire would move, and then forestry cleared out.
Well, let's take a little walk here, since we all wore our hiking shoes. Might as well make use of it. And again, there's trash, there's bottles. You hear a lot of people talk about bottles starting fires. Is that a thing, or is that a myth?
I think it can be a thing depending on the time of the year. So fire season, we go 6 months because it's the dry season. And when you talk about April, May are our hottest times of the year historically. So those would be the times when trash could potentially start more fires. But we haven't documented that.
Right.
So we're going to be doing more fire investigation and research to put that, like the field application down and confirm it. What I do want to say is, though, Smokey Bear, it's been a long-standing relationship with Guam and the Forest Service, and Smokey Bear says only you. And this is something we want to resonate on the island as well, because only you stems back to the human-caused ignitions. So we stopped
Human-caused ignitions.
Human-caused ignitions. So we stopped putting the, yeah.
We got a human-caused ignition up there in Alpha 4.
Oh, do I have to do
Come
it
in,
again?
over.
Sorry. So basically, trash, cigarettes, which is still trash, intentionally set fires, backyard fires that escape. These are all human-caused ignitions. It didn't just happen. It's somehow something we put into the environment caused that fire.
So that sounds like all fires, unless you have like a freak lightning strike. But I only see that in the movies.
Right, that doesn't really apply to Guam. We have our humidity alone, and every time we have lightning here on the island, what's it doing?
Raining.
It's raining.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the mapping you guys do. And I thought it was just like you map the area out, but you actually go down and see the damage and how far the soil's been damaged.
So it's a partnership again with the Forest Service. They have a contractor who's been helping Guam do satellite imagery mapping of our fires so we can get more accurate data. And so to date, our updated information is that we have a total of about 127 wildfires that were documented, mapped across the island. This is north to south, regardless of DOD or Gov Guam properties.
Well, what's the time frame on that?
This is from January to March.
So this year we've had 127 wildfires.
127 wildfires, and this could be something from something as small as a 10 by 10 fire to, we're talking hundreds of acres. And that comes out to about 2% burned. So 1.9%, if we want to be precise, of the entire land mass of Guam burned so far. And we're only at the midway point.
Which is crazy.
It is. And but again, we're not going to end on the negative. There's a positive here.
What's the positive? 98% of the island didn't burn. Is that a positive?
But this means that May 4th, you're going to come out and do something. You don't have to come to an event we're going to throw. You're going to step outside your backyard, and you're going to look at your cousins who live next door and your aunties who live at the other house and be like, you know what? We're all going to bush cut today. And we're going to hashtag Guam Prep Day 19. Got that? Guam Prep Day 19.
So you guys know what you're doing on May 4th. Never mind the Star Wars thing. We're concentrating
Oh
solely on the
the conflict. So do it
Yeah.
first thing in the morning, then go.
You could bush cut in your Star Wars gear, I think.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What a hashtag that would be. Take pictures of it, share it with us on Guam Forestry. So at Guam Forestry, I'm shameless, I know, but you know.
Fabulous Instagram.
Chelsea, let's talk about you know how hard these forestry
my
folks
gosh.
work, because she was telling me that they actually fight fires a lot of times without using a lot of water, and I don't even know how you do that. But can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I just think these guys are amazing, and that is the number one reason that I wanted to be here with Christine for this today. Is I came into this department understanding all the agricultural components of the Department of Agriculture, but learning what these guys do. Their title is Forestry Aides, which doesn't speak to the work that they do, but like we said, they patrol and then they come and they report to the fires. I mean, they're the first ones to see it, and they're out there working tirelessly fighting the fires. Oftentimes they do it past 5 o'clock. Last night they were in Inarajan and till 10.
So it's not like 5 o'clock comes. They're like, okay, guys, punch out. That's it.
No,
Time
not
to
at all.
go.
And so what we are going to work to do, what I am going to work to do, is to get them overtime and hazardous pay, because they don't get that, but they're out here fighting fires. And then they don't, I want them to be recognized for the service that they provide to the community, how much they save our community. I mean, the fire that she was talking about out on 4 Alpha.
It was 4 Alpha.
4 Alpha was literally across the street from my house.
Right.
And every single time I drive home, I'm like, oh, Christine, look, there's another fire. And I'm taking pictures and WhatsApping them to her. But it's her and the guys and the crew that are just, they're relentless. And it doesn't matter what time of day they're reporting, and then they're showing up at work the next day. And they can't just take off the next day because they worked all night. They come and they still patrol the next day because that's what they do. Right. And we're limited in numbers. So that's my job.
In numbers and the resources, too. Like you're saying, no overtime. So that requires you to be flexible and give comp time. And how do you juggle that? And then what's the long-term solution? Are we going to lobby some of the senators maybe?
I will lobby everybody and anybody until I get them overtime and hazardous pay. I'll say that right now. I will be
Heads
relentless.
up, senators.
I love you.
Right. Right now they're worried about a different kind of grass fire, though.
Well, see, we're going to be responding to those too.
Right.
We'll be patrolling. But yeah, no, we need to get them overtime pay. We need to get them hazardous pay. I mean, they're in hazardous conditions, and we're able to provide them equipment through our partnerships with U.S. Forestry Services, but they're still out there risking their lives to save our grass and to save our forests. And then they go in and plant the forest when it's wet season or rainy season. Right. So they're fighting the fires in dry season and planting the trees that save our island and our reefs and our fish in wet season.
Let's talk, Christine, talk about some of the tools that you guys use, and then I kind of want to transition into the prevention side of things. But you're telling me you go in here with a bush beater, with a, what you call it?
It's a bladder bag and a brush beater. So the bladder bag is a 5-gallon backpack. So we carry in about 40 pounds, so 5 gallons of water. And the brush beater is, like I said, almost like a giant fly swatter with a rubber mat at the end. Right. Very simple, classy. Yeah. And we hike in, and it's really just about taking away the heat and suffocating that fire. So once we run out of water, we still have the brush beater to smother the fire. And it works perfectly when you have two at least, one with a backpack and one with a brush beater, and we just work in a line and work that fire.
And so you're working the edge of the fire where maybe you squirt a little water and then you're smashing it down.
Right. Very, very little to no water, because once you head out there, if something rekindles on the way out, you need to really conserve. So Guam Forestry, we tend to carry in our water, or we don't tend to, we carry 150 gallons of water. Our largest tank is about 200, but it's about 150 typically. And so we fill up, we go out, and occasionally we're able to fight from the fire truck and just pull hose, and that's awesome. Yeah. But eventually we run out of water. And it's the movement from having to go and reload for more water where we run the chance of something rekindling or growing. Right. And so that partnership with the Guam Fire Department, they will continue to reload us when we call for help. And so that keeps our truck in place. GFD will reload and we'll keep suppressing.
But most of the time, I mean, if I don't know of any hose can I mean, we're talking about that's like a half mile in.
We've run about 1,000 feet of hose. It's a cotton hose, and we run that, and but eventually you get to the end of it, and your bladder bag and brush beater, and then when you're out of water, it's brush beater. A lot of flapping. It's like 25,000 flaps later, you feel like, oof, yeah.
Wow. So what kind of training do you guys do for this? Because it seems like you got to be in pretty good shape.
The Forest Service provides wildland firefighter training. So every year we have a refresher course and we invite our fire partners to that course so we all get that at the same time. And it's just an annual thing.
Let's talk about prevention, and wrapping this show up. Again, it's group chat, Chris Barnett. How do you guys handle the prevention side of things?
So when we get calls, if someone calls us or messages us on Facebook or Instagram, don't Twitter because I don't know how again. When we receive messages, we'll come out. So we'll schedule an outreach event. We also now have a cargo trailer, which I'm just going to tease you with that. The director will write a PSA and we'll put that out there, but it's coming. It's fabulous, I promise. And we're going to take people into their green spaces. So outreach typically has been in classrooms, in cafeterias, or at communities, with a table display. Right. What we've been working on with Guam Forestry is really taking these static displays and making them more interactive. So we've incorporated various games to really personalize this threat for people. Because if you don't relate to it in any way, then it's not a problem for me. So we're trying to make it relatable. But the cargo trailer is going to bring you out of your office space or your classroom.
Pretty excited about this.
I am. Can you tell I get excited about a lot of this?
So. What about kids? I mean, you talk about prevention. You definitely want to plant these the seeds in a lot of the young people's minds. That generation coming up, maybe they could be better stewards than we are.
Perfect, thank you. So stewardship, we have the Forestry Stewardship Program, which is the amazing way to get families and community members that have land, and you want to convert that land. That's maybe it's lying fallow. Maybe there isn't anything really growing on that but grass. You can participate in the stewardship program for free, and we will propagate a selected amount of vegetation or trees for you. So it's a communication that takes place between the landowner and our forester. Right. And they come up with a plan and they reforest. And maybe agroforestry is your thing. Like, Christine, I don't really want another one of these trees here. I just kind of want to eat what I plant. So that becomes part of that partnership. We discuss
mango trees.
Right. We discuss agroforestry, incorporating also those valuable and awesome natives.
Well, that's been really informational talking with you guys. I mean, I had no idea. Again, a lot of times it's out of sight, out of mind. But when you get these videos of the fire, like there's a video of the fire that was going around on WhatsApp, you're right, it really takes you close to home. And hopefully by sharing what you guys go through in forestry and agriculture, more people can have awareness. And remember, we're synchronizing our calendars May 4th. May 4th, okay? We're throwing out the Star Wars thing. We're doing stuff for forestry, all right? So thank you, Christine, and Chelsea, thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, can we end with the tagline?
What do we got?
Munga masongi Guahan, don't burn Guam.
Nice, I like that. Hey, I'm Chris Barnett. Thank you for starting your day the KUAM way with our starting lineup. This has been Group Chat. Hasta adios. Munga masongi Guahan.